Welcome to the Emergency Management Network interview series, Leaders and Innovators, brought to you by Buffalo Computer Graphics, DLAN, one unified solution for all your emergency management needs. Good morning, good afternoon, and depending on where you're at in this fine world. And I hope everybody is doing well and is behaving well. So, as we're coming into the summer months, it's great to see the weather changing here, and everybody's enjoying their time. But we still need to talk about what is happening around and how do we keep our communities safe and resilient. And today I have with me a serial entrepreneur who is in the disaster space, in making communities safer with a couple of unique products. Vivek, welcome to the Emergency Management Network.
Hi, Todd. Thank you for having me. So excited to be here and talk to you.
So I want to talk about you for a minute before we get into your product, and we'll get deep into those conversations as well. But like, as I was looking at your profile and talking to you, I realized that you've been an entrepreneur for a long time, and really in that community space and in different formats. What drove you to go into this line of work?
Yeah, so thank you, Todd. I moved to Los Angeles about 16 years ago, and I was frankly, skeptical and maybe even scared that I don't know anything about how to be ready for an earthquake, how to be ready for a wildfire, how to be ready for a tsunami, and all of those disasters that I had heard of being that are common in Southern California. And I was moving from New Jersey, New York area. So the first thing I did when I came here, I remember this in 2008, 2009, I attended classes by the Los Angeles City Fire Department to get CERT certified, Community Emergency Response Team, so I could be ready for disasters. I took classes in the Los Angeles County Fire Department. I took online courses trying to make myself and my family and my home ready for any of these disasters. And even though I felt prepared, I have like 10 go bags sitting around in my house some places. And, I've backed up some of my documents. I just felt I was not on top of how prepared was I.
Mhm.
Am I 100% prepared? Am I as good prepared as Todd DeVoe is prepared, who does this for a living, and I'm just who happen to be a citizen of Los Angeles. And I come from a healthcare background. We try to quantify a lot in healthcare. What is your blood pressure? What's your blood sugar? Here, there's no scale. Like even in disaster, we have a scale for what's earthquakes, on the Richter scale, or hurricanes, category 1, category 2. But there's no category 1 preparedness, category 3 preparedness. So I think what I thought was I needed to figure out a way to quantify for myself how well prepared I am. And that's what really drove me, those two things. To have a high level overview of how prepared am I and where am I on that scale. And the good, interesting thing is this, like how your blood pressure can go up and go down. I think preparedness can go up and go down. If you don't check your go back for the last 3 years that you bought and put it in the garage, your preparedness score is going down.
Yes.
If you haven't, checked your insurance policies and what might have changed, and insurance doesn't cover your extreme weather event anymore. Last year or earlier this year, we got hit by a hurricane here in Southern California. Who would have thought?
Right.
So that's what drove me to it, to get a way to measure how well prepared I am.
Let's talk about that for a minute. Let's talk about community preparedness and what that means. And a long time ago now, I was going to say just recently, but it was probably 10 years ago now, that there was a survey that was done regarding preparedness in Orange County, California. And they put out a survey, and those that responded to the survey, said ended up being like 10% of the respondents to the survey felt that they were prepared for disasters. And I would even probably say that was probably a bit lower, because I'm wondering like how much of that was social pressure to say that they're prepared, right?
Yeah.
Because but what does it mean to be? And as you said, you have like 10 go bags around your house, and we'll get into the vest that you're wearing here in a minute. But so what does it mean to be prepared? Like how do you quantify that?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. Doesn't having 10 go bags makes me better prepared than somebody who has 3 go bags? I think more research that I've done in this field, as we have been doing a lot of trying to understand what exactly is preparedness, who is prepared, who is not. So we thought the one good place for us to start would be go talk to the disaster survivors. So we interviewed a lot of folks who survived Thomas fires up in Ventura County, Woolsey fires here in Malibu. We have friends in Houston, Texas area. They survived Hurricane Rita, Hurricane Harvey. We have talked to folks in Florida and asked them specifically, tell me how prepared you thought you were before the disaster, how did
Mhm.
it go during, and how did it go afterward. And invariably, what you just said, the stats that you quoted, those studies, I think, are deeply flawed. If I ask you, do you have enough food at home? You haven't done any preparation. You just happen to have food in your freezer, in your pantry, so you have food for 3 days. So if
Mhm.
the FEMA definition is, are you prepared for 3 days? Most folks are, because but you are not actively preparing for it. So I think, but also we as human beings don't want to think about negative things. I don't want to be thinking about disaster readiness all the time. It's overwhelming. And a lot of us, we want to like, oh, it's not going to happen to me. It has never happened to me in the last 30, 40 years of my life. Why is it going to happen to me? So I think the way where we started was we asked folks like, hey, how prepared were you? And then looking at what are some of the recommendations, what are the different kinds of things that you can do. So the first thing we did was we created a universe of all the preparedness things you could do. And I'll just give you a high level, like in our app, Percy app, you can make 12 preparedness plans, whether it's your evacuation plan, your communication plan, your recovery plan, stay at home, shelter in place. If you have school kids, so again, you personalize it. If you have kids who are going to school, you need to have a school safety plan. If
Mhm.
you're an empty nester, you don't care about school safety plan. If you have pets, if you have somebody at home who's on dialysis. So we created that whole universe, folks who might have special needs, folks who might have mobility issues. And then we started saying, okay, Vivek or Todd, if you do these three things, everyone should have an evacuation plan, right? That's like basic. So
Right.
what does that evacuation plan? Do you have a packing list? Do you have a meeting place? So in the app, we help you step by step do those things. And as you complete those activities, you are increasing your readiness score. So we are beginning to assign, and I'm not saying this is a perfect way to measure readiness. And the last thing I will say is I've heard folks like yourself who are experts in the field, other folks who talk about this, and everyone says you need to have a network.
Mhm.
If you look at Los Angeles County standard of operating procedure after a major disaster, they say very clearly 90% of the time the rescues that happen are not first responders. It's
Right.
your family or your neighbors. So the one thing that we emphasize a lot is what is your social capital? What are the folks who are around you? So like for me, I live here in Crenshaw Manor, just like South Los Angeles. I know like there are 22 homes on this side of the street, 22 on the other. How many folks do I know on that street? When somebody new moves in, I go there, welcome them with a little cupcake or a donut, or like, hey, you're welcome to my neighborhood. Building those relationships. So in the app, we ask you those things. Are you doing those? Are you building that network? So if you don't do it, your score goes down. If you keep on doing it, your score goes. But we are there to help you. You might not remember I need to change update my go bag because you just lost a dog. Say
Sure.
for those kind of things. So that's how we said define the whole universe, and then as you complete small things, you get your readiness score.
One of the things that we've been struggling with for many years, and I don't have an answer to it. I just know there's a problem. I hate that because I'm a guy who likes to come see a problem and try to find out what the answers are. But it's the reaching out to the public, and we've done campaigns, right? Every time there's an earthquake, we get on the radio. We talk about it. National Preparedness Month is coming up in September. There's going to be programs going around there. We have National Night Out coming up here in August, where there's public outreach programs. My team is out at the farmers market every Thursday here in El Segundo. We these are the things that we do to try to get public awareness, and there's normally mild interest in it, unless there's like the earthquake, that it spikes a little bit and then it goes back down, if anything. And as I say a lot, it's like you get the parent who comes over to your booth at the farmers market, for instance, and picks up a flyer, and that flyer gets put into a cabinet at home or whatever, and we forget about it because we got soccer practice or, choir or whatever's going on for your school, or,
Yeah.
your kids they get busy and they forget about it. And I don't think they don't want to do it. I think they just forget about it.
Yeah.
How do we get, like, with your company, the stuff that you guys are doing, sorry, the stuff that you guys are doing, how do we get in front of the consumer, the public?
That's a great question. And I think, for us, it's a question of survival as a company. If that is the interest level, and you guys have way more data on this, but we have also researched and we find there is not, people want to do it. So I think a couple of things, the way we look at it as a company that needs to survive is there's data out there that says 15% of the folks are actively working on getting ready.
Mm.
50% of the folks are, it's not even on their radar. They don't think about it. It just doesn't cross. It's the middle 35% who have either done one or two things or who know they should do something, but they just don't know where to start and how to start.
Mm.
So our job as a company is, we don't have the resources and the bandwidth of like what you have or FEMA has, who can go and educate the whole world. We need to be very narrowly focused. So we are trying to identify who are those 35% people who want to do something, but they haven't had a chance or don't know where to start. So then we find those folks online and be in front of them and offer them that solution. So that's one approach we are using. The second approach, we think about it as behavior change, right?
Mhm.
When seatbelts came along, like where I grew up in India, even today people don't use seatbelts, even though the government has made it mandatory there. When I was there were no seatbelts. But over time, people realize the importance of it. Or if you think about retirement plans, there are studies that show that if the retirement plan is a opt-in, the adoption is low. If the retirement plan is a opt-out, like everybody who becomes an employee, they are automatically enrolled into a 401k plan, then the adoption rate is very high.
Mm.
That's the second approach we are using. We are going and talking to employers, offering disaster readiness as an employee benefit, because now it is in the interest of the employer that their employees, and now with more and more remote and hybrid workforce. So let's say if you were running a company and 50%, 40% of your employees were in 8 of those southeastern states like Florida, Louisiana, Texas, North Carolina. This hurricane season from June to November 30th, they are going to get, National Hurricane Center says that it's going to be one of the most active hurricane season. So if I can convince you as an employer that you are better off, you'll have less loss of productivity, absenteeism, and turnover because your employees are better prepared.
Right,
If
right.
you offer it as a opt out, so everyone gets a disaster readiness solution. If you don't want it, then you can opt out. So those are the two approaches we are using. And the last thing I'll say is, when I, like, sometimes you mentioned farmers market, you guys have disaster fairs, and sometimes we can come in and set up a booth. When we set up a booth and folks come by and touch this vest or try it on, and they say, oh, this is so lightweight, I can put it on, it has most of the emergency items, we get very high adoption. Very high meaning like 25 to 33% of who stop by, they order it or pre-order it, and they say, we
Wow.
want this vest. So our job as a company is to go find those people online and say, hey, here's the solution you can use, and then go convince the employers. So those are the 2 or 3 ways we are thinking about solving this problem of lack of interest, the way you articulated it.
I think that's a great idea, to go and look at the employers, right? So, I mean, we have some, large employers, like, here in Southern California, elsewhere does too. I'm thinking of like some of the ones here in the town that I service, like a Mattel or Boeing or that, right? So a large employer like that, it makes sense for them to add that as part of a packet for them to put away. Here at the city, we've kind of done that as well. We've given everybody a disaster kit. Now, the question is whether they maintain it or whatnot. That's the other side of it. But we'll get into that second with how we can kind of nudge them. Speaking of nudge, have you read the book Nudge?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. I think this is kind of what we need to be doing, right? As
Correct.
emergency managers, is nudging our community forward, right? And
Yeah.
it's sort of what your take on that. The way I'm hearing from you is that you're thinking of nudging the people in the right direction. Is that how?
Yeah. So I think we think about it as like behavior change. what are some of the principles that are successful in that model. So another example we think of is learning a new language.
Mm.
So you download Duolingo on your phone. You're very excited. You're going to Spain next year. You're going to spend 3 weeks. And you downloaded it here in July 2024. I'm going to learn it. You do it for a weekend, for a week, and then you're like, yeah, but I still have 6 months to go. I'll do it, and then it falls off your radar.
Mhm.
But Duolingo is incredibly successful in bringing you back and engage, having you come and engage with the app without being overwhelming. And I think
Mm.
that's the fine balancing act. You want to nudge, but you don't want to become annoying. That's what I think, that that's what the balance. And I'm not saying we have cracked that nut. We are working on it. And we have some early feedback, what is working, what's not working. And we are changing things at our end so that we can adapt to what best meets the customer's need. And different folks have different needs. Empty nester who just had all their last kid go to college, they are by themselves. Maybe they have more time. They are okay with getting a push notification from the app much more frequently than suppose somebody who has two kids, 1, 8 and 6. They're like buried, like you said, going to choir or soccer practice, all of those things. So I think behavior change, those nudges, that is absolutely critical. And what a better way to do it than using a device that we all carry on us all the time.
Let's talk about your app, because I know we kind of alluded to it a few times, and I took a look at it online, and what it is, and so you realistically have two products that you're trying to push to the consumer. One is the vest that you're wearing, the other one is an app that kind of goes hand in hand with the vest. Let's talk about the app, how you develop it, and how you think it's going to fit into community resilience.
Yeah, so I think, like I said, the first step we did was, there are two big starting pillars for us. What is recommended? What are the experts in the field say? Whether it is FEMA, we looked at the Canadian and British Columbia has prepared BC, their recommendations, even Australia, some other places, New Zealand had that massive earthquake in
Mhm.
Christchurch. How did they update their disaster preparedness guidance and all those things? Found some of those common themes, what everyone should be doing. And then we had to make a decision. Are we going to be making a recommendation for each hazard? Or do we want to say a multi-hazard approach that we want to use? So we figured out, not we, but folks had already figured out some common themes and use a multi-hazard approach. So what we did was like, okay, these are some of the common things that have been recommended. But I said, before we use this, let's go talk to the survivors and say what worked for them and what did not work for them. And we combined those. So wherever that Venn diagram came together, those were the things we started putting together into the
Mhm.
app. And so there are plans that you can make. Like I said, you can make 12, up to 12 plans. And by the way, we are just expanding now. We are talking to some employers who want to put in their business continuity plan within that app as well.
Hmm.
So just like how you get your, let's say health insurance from your employer has no visibility into your medical record. That's your personal medical record. So we think of our app as is playing a similar kind of a role. You download the app, you create your own personal Todd DeVoe account, your family, everyone has access to it. But there is one part in the app where you get messages from your employer. So if you change your employer, you get if you are the principal responsible person for taking care of the warehouse or the factory during a disaster, then you get all those messages. Or if you're just an employee getting those messages, that come through there as well. So basically 12 plans in the app and a 13 or 14 app depending on your employer. We also consolidate alerts from multiple sources, National Weather Service, obviously, but also your local police and fire department. Because as you know, evacuation orders don't come from National Weather Service. They typically come from the local
Right.
law enforcement. Then we have another functionality in the app where it's your circle of trust. You can send a message. So let's say I'm on 405, which is for folks who are not from Southern California, major freeway here in the US, in Southern California. Earthquake happens, the freeway is broken, and you can't drive back home. In the app, you can send a message to your wife. All of them, you're not sending them separate text messages. Now,
Mm.
for alerts, as you know, we always recommend that you should have multiple channels open because in case cell tower is down or something goes wrong. And then we have a special curated section of items you should be thinking about for as you get ready. If you're a renter, do you have renter's insurance? So maybe we'll have a product to say, hey, this might interest you, and those kind of things. So that's kind of the approach for the app. The one big thing, as I alluded to earlier, is creating your circle of trust.
Mhm.
In our ideal world, your app is connected to your neighbors, obviously not your personal information, but things that you can share. So let's say if you are my neighbor and I have created a meeting place in the app that we're going to meet at the parking lot of Vaughn's or Ralph's. I am totally comfortable sharing that with you as my neighbor. So God forbid when the earthquake happens or we can't get home, we can all meet there, not just my wife and my family, but your family as well. So building that trust, building that network, I think there are experts who have done social capital is just so critical
Mhm.
in any coming through disaster for communities. There's data out there. You look at what happened after Katrina in Ninth Ward, the communities that came back, Maui fires, how the community came together. And it
Right.
happens again and again. Physical infrastructure fails you. Look what happened at Hurricane Beryl 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Power is still not back up. And
Right.
I have heard from so many people who said, my neighbor gave me a connection to their generator so I could keep my freezer working so my food won't go bad, or I could keep my AC running. That is social capital. So we encourage you in the app to build that social capital. If you're in a high rise building, maybe folks above you, below you, make connections. Maybe there's a nurse in your building or on your block.
Right.
Maybe I'm an electrician, I know how to fix something, I can help with somebody.
Mm.
So I think, I and other folks on my street, we have done cert courses. Like out of the 44 homes on my street, I have a personal relationship with 31 of those folks. Every time I walk my dog, knock at the door, there's a lady who's 85 staying, like, hey, are you okay? Everything. During the pandemic, there are folks going around, not in our block, almost, many neighborhoods. Can I get you your groceries?
Yeah.
So I think that's what the app does: build that social network or social capital, not social network, social capital. Yeah.
Well, it's the same, right? I mean, Daniel Ulrich, Dr. Ulrich, wrote a book called the Black Wave, talking about the triple disaster in Japan, and he really gets into the idea of social capital and what that really means. And then he talks about the networks, right? With the tight network, which is like your family, and then there's the loose network, which is those that are around you, and that you may have a connection at work or Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever, and to have those networks, those that have better loose networks and strong networks are more likely to survive disaster. And I think that's really critical. There's a program that I used when I was at a different jurisdiction, and it was named Neighbor for Neighbor, and it was started by one of my CERT volunteers created it. And the idea here is we hold a little instead of doing like neighborhood watch group. It was a disaster. It was based upon disasters,
Yeah.
and like this app would be perfect for that. That concept, because you're absolutely right. I'm gonna kind of lay this into a question here in a second, but the idea here that as emergency managers, we struggle with creating community programs that stick,
Yeah.
right? So it kind of alluded to that earlier when we're talking about doing the disaster fairs and whatnot. And those are nice and they're fun. The kids like to come to them, and the parents get busy. Does this the creation of this app? I'm guessing this would help make these networks, these community events stick. Is that how your experience has been?
So I think that's definitely one avenue we can approach. So in our app, we can promote some of those local events. So the challenge for us is to automate it, to take it on scale, have one place where those disaster events are available. So if I go to Google and I say disaster fair in my area, try that search if you get a chance. It's like disaster fairs from 2022 show
Yeah.
up in my Google search, right? So it's hard for me, even if you are actively thinking about it. So I think the way we want to do it in the app is things that you can do between the two people, not involving a third party from who we need to coordinate. Hey,
Well,
so Los
let
Angeles
me
has,
let me let me clarify the question really quick. It's the idea is does the app help make those lessons that we teach at the disaster fair stick to the people who to make them think about it, make them actually take that next step? Because remember I was saying in the beginning, where the parent grabs the flyer and puts the preparedness flyer. It looks really nice. It's on this glossy book, and
yeah,
well this looks great. This is this book I'm going to have, and you're going to take it and you're going to put it in a drawer and maybe never touch it again.
Correct.
Does the app help make that information stick? Are you is that what you're
Yeah.
experiencing?
Okay, my apologies. I
No,
misunderstood
no,
your
okay,
question.
yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. By the way, before I forget, I do want to mention you brought up Dr. Daniel Aldrich. He's one of our advisors.
Oh,
So in our app, when you put in your zip code, we tell you what are your risks, and that's the data that's coming from FEMA National Risk Index. But we also tell you what is your social capital that is coming from his database that they have put at Harvard, and that's publicly available, and we have integrated it with our app. So when you put in your zip code in Long Beach or El Segundo, it'll tell you what are the chances from different measures that they have built this social capital, how good is your community resilience? And that gives you an idea of how much work you may have to do to be ready for that. So
hmm,
that's just wanted to mention that. But yes, the idea would be whatever spurs you, whatever the trigger point is for you to say, I need to be ready for a disaster, the app makes it very simple. So when you get that flyer at a disaster fair and you come back home, and let's say howsoever you now find our Percy app, and you say, hey, I want to do, it says you should know your disaster.
hmm,
First thing you know is disaster risk. You just log in, or not even log in. You don't even have to create an account for that. You download the app, put in your zip code. It'll tell you, it pulls the data from FEMA National Risk Index. These are all your risks, whether it is wildfire, hurricanes, or they do 18 hazards. They include snowstorm, lightning, and flooding, all kinds of things. So you can see all of that. Then they say, hey, you should have an evacuation list. Like your flyer might say, here's an evacuation list. Very simple. Go create that evacuation list in the app. Now, to come to the stickiness part of it is, you say, hey, I'm going to invite my partner, my 14-year-old, to the app. They download the app. Now they are using it. They say,
hmm.
Dad, forgot this in the packing list. So now you can add that in the packing list. Once it's complete, not only have you shared it with your family, you can send it as a PDF to yourself, print it out, put it on your, and that's what the app would recommend, put it on your refrigerator, put it behind your closet door. So I think you're absolutely right. That what you guys are doing becomes the trigger, and then app becomes the stickiness, hopefully, that keeps them coming back to it. And they see the value and like, oh, maybe I created a packing list. I should set up a meeting place also.
Right.
Oh, I should create a trust circle also. Oh, maybe I should do, my kids are going to school. Here's another. FEMA says that 45% of parents do not know what their school's evacuation plan is. So when the earthquake happens, you go to school to pick up your child, they might not be there.
Can't be there, right?
Yeah. So we can say, hey, put in who's your school safety officer. Just have that information in the app. So that's how we, hopefully that makes it sticky to your point.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great stuff. Okay, so we're coming here, a few minutes left, and I want you to talk about that stylish vest that you're wearing.
Thank you. Actually, I'm so glad you said it's stylish because we were very conscious of the fact to not make it look like a SWAT vest. Yeah, because there's tons and tons of folks who have created amazing products that look like I am going to be, part of a SWAT team. What we wanted to do was we wanted to create a product that was different. So we hired a woman designer at Pratt Institute in New York, and she helped us with creating this. And they submitted it into a design competition, and we actually won an award for it.
Nice.
So thank you. Yeah, the idea is this is, if you don't put any emergency items in it, it is less than half a pound. You put all the 25 emergency essentials that we provide you with, it weighs less than 5 pounds, about 4.5 pounds. So if you have your grandma living with you who has mobility issues, is not going to pick up a 25-pound go bag, you can put this on. Now your hands are free, and you focused on, as you should be, protecting your family and protecting your home. The other part of the vest is, unlike the go bag where you put everything in, and if it's middle 3 a.m. and you're evacuating, you're fishing things in there. I can show you here a little bit. Each pocket is labeled very clearly with all the items that are in it.
Hmm.
So it's very easy to find where that piece of information, where that piece of emergency essential item that you need, whether it's your, headlamp, whether it's a multi-purpose tool, whatever it might be, 25 items, your first aid, your water purification tablets and stuff like that. Additionally, we have added even the logo or this piping. This is all reflective.
Hmm.
So at 4 a.m. when the big one hits here in Southern California and there is no power and you're looking for things, it is easier to find. It is available on our website, percy.us. Folks can go there and buy it right away. And we have a 5% discount right now for early adopter sale. So yeah, that's what the vest is. There's a hoodie here. When you get out and it's raining, you can cover your head. There's a pocket on the back that has it's ergonomically designed. So it has a poncho, a blanket. So when you evacuate and you're driving, you don't have anything protruding like your headlamp, on the back. So
Right.
very thoughtfully designed. Again, talking to folks who have survived disaster. So yeah.
That's great, and I think that's the thing is we have to make things that are functional, and think about I'll make fun of my wife here for a second. She'll probably kill me if she hears it, but she's always talking about fashion over function. She's like, oh,
Right.
it needs to be fashionable. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, and so yeah, I mean, but that's true because things like again, people aren't going to eat food they don't like.
Yeah.
No matter how hungry they are, unless they're like starving to death, but in most part, they're not going to eat food they don't like. And like if you tell them to, carry this super heavy backpack, they're gonna just drop it off. They're just not gonna do it.
Yeah, yeah.
So they're
I
not,
mean, you're very conscious of not putting water in any. Everyone says water, water, water. Water is heavy.
mm,
It's not easy to carry water. So if you're evacuating for the next 12 hours, we say yes. You should, in the app we help you shelter in place or evacuation. What you should pack and water, and we tell you that. Almost everyone has a flask, a water bottle. Use that, but don't be carrying it on you if you're walking to your car. Now, of course, if you're evacuating in New Orleans, in your ninth ward, you need to get to a bus, and because you're in New Orleans, they have buses that evacuate folks. So you carry water separately, or
right,
maybe the city provides you with water when you get to a shelter and those kind of things.
right,
So I think it becomes essential to, and the name Percy comes from that, perceptiveness, perseverance, understanding, to be always perceiving of what is my environment, what should I be thinking about. And because I cannot tell you how many times we interviewed folks and they said the sheriff knocked at my door and they said you have hour and a half, 2 hours to evacuate, and almost everyone said it was pure panic.
mm,
I didn't know what to pack. Where are my kids? Where's my husband? Where is all the things? What do I need to carry? One lady I interviewed in Ventura, she said the only thing I could think of after taking care of her family was this vase that had my grandfather's ashes
mm,
sitting on the mantle, and I just picked that and we evacuated. They came back 2 days later. Their refrigerator had turned into an aluminum puddle,
mm,
everything wiped out. And she said, all my important, precious for photographs, my jewelry, completely forgot.
right,
So, thinking about, so being perceptive and thinking ahead. I've talked to a family who survived Marshall fires in Colorado a couple of years ago. They had hour and a half. They evacuated. They had two young kids. They stayed at a friend's house that night. The mom was putting the boy and the girl, their son and daughter, to bed. They were 2 or 3. In her rush, she forgot the teddy bear for the boy. The boy would not fall asleep.
right.
He said next day, the whole world around them was up in flames. She was going from toy store to toy store to find that teddy bear for the boy.
Yeah.
That's what we do in the app. We help you think about things because you're in panic, you don't think about those things. So be ready for those. Yeah.
Oh man, that's chilling right there to think about that and the kids that are going through this and having something like that in your hand that helps you prepare and even having the vest on that helps you just grab something and go or something that you can put lightweight in your car.
Yeah.
We're talking to a professional emergency managers here, and not saying that every single one of them out there is ready to go because I know sometimes we talk a good game and sometimes we don't follow our own advice, right? And I'm not picking on anybody in particular out there, but how do you think that we could partner with you to get the message out to the community if they're looking to do so?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are very much open to. We would love to partner with uh, agencies and folks who are experts in the field. We can learn a lot from you, things we might be missing, but we think we can also add a lot of things to your conversations. If you go look on our website, the first person who bought this vest, even before it was ready, I was standing at a disaster fair next to the Coliseum, and I'm not going to name names. He's a senior person in the Los Angeles City Fire Department. He ordered 4 for his whole family.
Mm,
And I said, can I put your coat on my website? And he said, put the code, but don't give my name. Just say commander in the Los Angeles fire city. So that's what the quote is on our website. So whatever way you can guide us and say, hey, this is the best way without infringing on any of your rules, as a small for-profit, small startup, we would love to collaborate. Come attend your disaster fairs. We have materials that we can share for educational purposes. If that helps move the needle, anything we can do. I've been very fortunate. I came to this country as an immigrant. People have helped me going out of their way. So we believe in paying forward. We have talked to nonprofits here. So if somebody wants to buy and donate it to a nonprofit that is focused on protecting folks getting ready for disasters, low income, we are more than happy to collaborate. So anything we can do, yes.
Awesome. Thank you, Vivek. Well, we're kind of getting here to the end. Don't mean to kick you out, but yeah, we got to get going. I know you have a meeting right after this, and I do appreciate your time, and thanks for coming and sharing your story of perseverance and the Vest and app that you have. Thank you very much. You have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you for giving us the opportunity. We appreciate it.
Goodbye to everybody. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for spending time with us today. It's really important. And as emergency managers, I know that we're always looking for unique ways to be able to prepare our community and to be able to partner with organizations. And I think finding social entrepreneurs like Vivek and startups that are doing innovative things is what we should be doing. So thank you for spending time with us today. And well, we'll see you on the next one.